James Miller was tired. At 67 years old, his body ached as he sat on the hard wooden bench outside the courtroom. His hands shook a little, not from fear, but from worry. James wasn't worried about himself or what might happen to him. He was worried about Max, his loyal German shepherd. The hallway was busy. People walked past him without a glance. Lawyers in dark suits rushed by with folders in their hands. Police officers led people in handcuffs through heavy doors. But James just sat there, lost in thoughts about Max. For 12 years, Max had been more than just a pet. When James's wife died 3 years ago, Max became his only family. The dog would sit with James for hours, resting his head on the old man's knee while James talked about the old days. Max never judged, never complained, just listened with those kind brown eyes. "Mr. Miller, the judge is ready for you now." A young woman in a neat gray suit stood in front of him. This was Lisa Chen, his public defender. She had tried her best to help him, but they both knew James would face punishment for what he did. James slowly stood up, his knees cracking. "I know I broke the law," he said quietly. "I'm ready to face that. But I need to ask the judge something important." Lisa frowned. "We've already discussed your case fully, Mr. Miller. We agreed to accept the 6-month sentence. It's too late to change our approach now." "It's not about my sentence," James said, his voice breaking a little. "It's about Max, my dog." Lisa's face softened. In the 3 meetings they'd had, James had mentioned his dog many times. "What about Max? He's 14 years old now." "The vet says." James had to stop and take a deep breath. "The vet says he probably won't make it another 6 months. If I go to jail today, I'll never see him again." Lisa sighed. She had worked as a public defender for 5 years and had heard many sad stories. But something about this old man and his dog touched her heart. "What exactly do you want to ask the judge?" "I want to say goodbye to Max before I go to jail. That's all." James's eyes were dry, but his pain was clear. "My neighbor, Mrs. Chen, is watching him now. She lives just 3 blocks from here." Lisa knew the judge, Sarah Williams, was known for being fair but strict. Such requests were almost never granted. "Mr. Miller, I need to be honest with you. Judge Williams is unlikely to." "I have to try," James said firmly. "Max is all I have left in this world." The courtroom was crowded and warm. James stood straight as the charges against him were read. He had stolen medication from a pharmacy when he couldn't afford to pay for it. It wasn't for himself, but for Max, who needed expensive heart medicine. That didn't matter to the law, though. Judge Williams looked at James over her glasses. She was in her 50s, with gray streaks in her dark hair. Her face showed no emotion as she reviewed the papers in front of her. "Mr. Miller, do you understand the charges against you?" she asked. "Yes, Your Honor," James replied clearly. "And you've agreed to this 6-month sentence?" "Yes, Your Honor. But if I may, I have one request." James's voice was steady now, finding strength in the importance of what he was about to ask. The judge raised an eyebrow. "What request would that be, Mr. Miller?" The courtroom was completely silent as James spoke his next words. "Your Honor, I would like permission to say goodbye to my dog before I begin my sentence. He's very old and sick. I'm afraid he won't be alive when I get out." Every person in the courtroom turned to look at James, some with surprise, others with sympathy. The prosecutor rolled his eyes. But Judge Williams's face changed. For just a moment, something flashed across her features. Recognition, perhaps, or understanding. "Explain your situation, Mr. Miller," she said, her voice softer than before. James stood tall in front of Judge Williams. His voice was soft, but clear as he spoke about Max. "Your Honor, Max is 14 years old. He's been with me for 12 years. When my wife Anna died 3 years ago, Max became my only family. He has heart problems now. The vet says he may only have a few weeks left." James paused to take a breath. His hands were no longer shaking. Talking about Max gave him strength. I'm not asking to avoid my punishment. I know what I did was wrong. I just want to say goodbye to my best friend before I go. He might not be here when I get out." The courtroom was quiet. Even the court reporter had stopped typing for a moment, her eyes on James. The prosecutor, Mr. Reed, cleared his throat. "Your Honor, while this is certainly a sad situation, we cannot make exceptions based on emotional appeals. The court has procedures that must be followed." Judge Williams looked at Mr. Reed, then back at James. "Where is your dog now, Mr. Miller?" "My neighbor, Mrs. Chen, is taking care of him. She lives 3 blocks from here, on Maple Street." Judge Williams tapped her pen on the desk. Everyone in the courtroom could tell she was thinking hard about something. The bailiff, Officer Rodriguez, stood by the wall, watching with interest. He had seen many cases in his 20 years on the job, but never one quite like this. "Your Honor," Lisa Chen, James's lawyer, spoke up. "If I may, Mr. Miller has no criminal history. He has been honest and cooperative throughout this process. His request is unusual but simple." Judge Williams raised her hand to silence Lisa. The courtroom was so quiet that when she put down her pen, everyone heard it hit the wooden desk. "Mr. Miller, the court does not typically grant such requests." Her voice was firm, and James felt his hope fade. He looked down at his worn shoes. Then Judge Williams continued, "However, this court also believes in justice tempered with compassion." James looked up, surprised. "I am calling a 1-hour recess," Judge Williams announced. "Officer Rodriguez will escort Mr. Miller to see his dog. Mr. Miller will then return to this courtroom for sentencing." Mr. Reed jumped to his feet. "Your Honor, this is highly irregular. There's no precedent for—" "Are you questioning my authority in my courtroom, Mr. Reed?" Judge Williams asked sharply. "No, Your Honor, but—" "Then we will proceed as I have outlined. 1 hour, Mr. Miller. Officer Rodriguez will accompany you at all times." People in the courtroom started whispering to each other. Some smiled. One old woman in the back wiped a tear from her eye. Officer Rodriguez stepped forward. He was a tall man with kind eyes. "Let's go, Mr. Miller," he said politely. James could hardly believe what was happening. He nodded to Judge Williams. "Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you so much." As James walked out with Officer Rodriguez and Lisa, he felt like he was in a dream. The bright sunlight outside the courthouse made him blink. The street was busy with cars and people going about their day, not knowing the gift James had just received. "Your dog must be really special," Officer Rodriguez said as they walked. "He is," James replied. "He saved me after Anna died. I was so lonely and sad. Sometimes I didn't even want to get out of bed. But Max needed walks and food, so I had to keep going." They turned onto Maple Street. James's heart beat faster with each step. In just a minute, he would see Max. The thought filled him with both joy and sadness. Mrs. Chen's small blue house came into view. There was a fence around the yard, and a garden with bright flowers. James stopped for a moment, taking a deep breath. "Are you ready, Mr. Miller?" Lisa asked gently. James nodded. "Yes, I've been ready since the judge said yes." Officer Rodriguez opened the gate, and they walked up to the front door. James knocked, his heart pounding in his chest. The door opened, and Mrs. Chen stood there. She was a small woman in her 70s with kind eyes. When she saw James, her face showed surprise. "James? And who are these people?" she asked, looking at Officer Rodriguez in his uniform. "Hello, Mrs. Chen," James said. "The judge gave me 1 hour to see Max before I go to jail. This is Officer Rodriguez and my lawyer, Lisa." Mrs. Chen's eyes widened. Then she smiled and opened the door wider. Come in, come in. Max will be so happy to see you." They walked into the small, neat living room. There, in a dog bed by the window, lay Max. The old German shepherd looked smaller than James remembered. His fur was gray around the muzzle, and his breathing seemed hard. "Max," James called softly. The dog's ears perked up. He lifted his head, and when he saw James, his tail began to thump against the bed. Max tried to stand but couldn't. His back legs were too weak. James quickly moved to him and knelt on the floor. "It's okay, boy. Don't get up." He gently put his hand on Max's head. The dog licked his hand, his tail still wagging. Officer Rodriguez and Lisa stood back by the door, giving James space. Mrs. Chen went to the kitchen, saying something about making tea. "He hasn't eaten much these past few days," Mrs. Chen called from the kitchen. "The vet came yesterday. He said." She stopped talking. "Said what?" James asked, still stroking Max's fur. Mrs. Chen came back into the room. "He said Max might not have much time left. Maybe a week or two." James nodded, feeling a lump in his throat. He sat down on the floor next to Max's bed. The dog put his head on James's leg, just like he always did at home. "I knew you were sick, old friend," James said quietly. "That's why I did what I did. I couldn't let you suffer." Lisa, who could hear what James was saying, asked, "Is that why you stole the medicine? For Max?" James nodded. "His heart medicine costs so much. After paying rent and buying food, I didn't have enough. I asked for help, but no one would help. So I took it." He looked down at Max. "I know it was wrong." Officer Rodriguez checked his watch. "We have 40 more minutes, Mr. Miller." James thanked him and turned back to Max. For the next half hour, he just sat there talking to his dog. He told Max about the funny squirrel they saw in the park last month. He reminded him of the time Max chased a ball into the lake and was so surprised to find himself swimming. He promised that Mrs. Chen would take good care of him. Max just lay there, his brown eyes never leaving James's face, his tail giving a small wag now and then. It was as if he understood everything. Lisa wiped tears from her eyes. Even Officer Rodriguez had to look away sometimes. Mrs. Chen brought tea, but no one drank it. When it was time to go, James kissed Max on the head. "Goodbye, old friend. You're the best dog anyone could ask for." Max whined softly as if he knew what was happening. He tried once more to get up. "Stay, Max. Stay," James said, his voice breaking. "Be a good boy." As they walked back to the courthouse, James was quiet. Officer Rodriguez walked beside him, not as a guard now, but almost as a friend. "Thank you for this," James said as they neared the courthouse steps. "Don't thank me," Officer Rodriguez replied. "Thank Judge Williams." Inside the courtroom, everyone was waiting. Judge Williams looked at James as he took his place in front of her. "Are you ready for sentencing now, Mr. Miller?" she asked. James stood straight and nodded. "Yes, Your Honor, I am." But Judge Williams had a strange look on her face. She seemed to be making a big decision. Judge Williams looked at her papers for a long time. The courtroom was quiet. James stood still, ready to hear how long he would be in jail. He felt sad about Max, but he was glad he got to say goodbye. "Mr. Miller," Judge Williams finally said, "I've been thinking about your case during this recess." The prosecutor, Mr. Reed, sat up straight. He seemed worried about what the judge might say next. "Your Honor," Mr. Reed started to say, but Judge Williams held up her hand to stop him. "Mr. Miller, you stole medicine worth $300. That is against the law, and there must be consequences." Her voice was firm. "However, I also must consider why you did it." James looked at his lawyer, Lisa. She seemed just as surprised as he was. "Officer Rodriguez told me about your visit with Max," Judge Williams continued. "He also told me what you said about why you stole the medicine." James nodded. "Yes, Your Honor. I couldn't let Max suffer, but I know what I did was wrong." Judge Williams took off her glasses. For the first time, she looked less like a judge and more like a regular person. 20 years ago, Mr. Miller, I had a dog named Charlie. He was a golden retriever. When he got sick, I would have done anything to help him." Her voice became softer. Anything. People in the courtroom started whispering to each other. No one had ever heard Judge Williams talk about her personal life before. Your Honor. Mr. Reed stood up, confused by this turn of events. I've made my decision, Judge Williams said, putting her glasses back on. Mr. Miller, you will not be going to jail today. A loud buzz of voices filled the room. The bailiff had to call for quiet. Instead, Judge Williams continued, you will serve your sentence in the following way. First, you will be under house arrest for 3 months. You will wear an ankle monitor and only leave your home for approved reasons. James could hardly believe what he was hearing. House arrest meant he could be with Max. Second, you will pay back the $300 for the medicine you stole, plus a $200 fine. James nodded. It would be hard with his small pension, but he would find a way. And third, Judge Williams said, you will perform 200 hours of community service at the West Side Animal Shelter. They need people to walk dogs and care for sick animals. Mr. Reed stood up again. Your Honor, this is not the sentence we agreed upon. The law clearly. The law also gives me discretion in sentencing, Mr. Reed, Judge Williams said firmly, unless you wish to question my understanding of the law. Mr. Reed sat down quickly. No, Your Honor. Judge Williams looked back at James. Do you understand your sentence, Mr. Miller? Yes, Your Honor, James said, his voice shaking with emotion. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, Judge Williams said. House arrest is not easy, and I expect all 200 hours of service to be completed with excellence. I will, Your Honor. I promise. As James left the courtroom with Lisa, he could hardly believe what had happened. People he didn't know were smiling at him and patting him on the back. I can go home to Max, he said to Lisa, still not quite believing it. Yes, you can, Lisa replied with a smile. Let's get that ankle monitor set up, and then you're free to go. While they waited for the ankle monitor, Lisa explained how house arrest would work. James would have to stay home, except for approved trips like going to the doctor or the animal shelter for his community service. And what about taking Max to the vet? James asked. I'm sure that will be approved, Lisa said. Judge Williams made it pretty clear she understands how important Max is to you. James looked out the window of the courthouse. The sun was shining, and for the first time in months, he felt hopeful. He would be with Max for whatever time the old dog had left. And maybe, just maybe, working at the animal shelter would help heal his heart when Max was gone. 3 days later, James sat in his small living room, with Max lying beside his chair. The ankle monitor on his leg felt strange, but James didn't mind. Being home with Max was all that mattered. Mrs. Chen had helped bring Max back home. The old dog seemed happier already, eating a little more and wagging his tail whenever James spoke to him. James gave Max his medicine every morning and evening, careful to follow the vet's instructions. We're going to be okay, Max, James said, gently patting the dog's head. Max looked up at him with trusting eyes. The phone rang. It was Lisa, his lawyer. Good news, Mr. Miller, she said. I talked to your probation officer. You can start your community service at the animal shelter tomorrow. And they approved your request to take Max to the vet next week. Thank you, Lisa, James said. I don't know how to thank you for all your help. You don't need to thank me, Lisa replied. Just take care of Max and do well at the shelter. The next morning, James got ready to go to the West Side Animal Shelter. His probation officer had already put the animal shelter address into his ankle monitor system, so he was allowed to go there. The shelter was a large building with a fenced yard behind it. When James walked in, he heard dogs barking and saw cats in cages along the walls. A young woman with curly hair greeted him. You must be James Miller, she said with a smile. I'm Tina, the shelter manager. Judge Williams called me about you. She did. James was surprised. Yes, she said you're good with animals and that we should put you to work with our older dogs. Tina led James through the shelter. Many people want puppies and kittens. The older animals often stay here for a long time, and some never get adopted. James nodded. He understood what it was like to be old and forgotten. "This is where you'll work," Tina said, stopping in front of a room with several older dogs in large cages. "These are our seniors. They need walks, baths, and most of all, they need someone to care about them." James looked at the dogs. Some were sleeping. Others watched him with sad eyes. One brown dog with a gray face barked once, wagging its tail. "That's Buddy," Tina said. "He's been here for 2 years. No one wants a 10-year-old dog with arthritis." James walked over to Buddy's cage. The dog looked at him hopefully. "Hello, Buddy," James said softly. Buddy wagged his tail harder. Tina showed James how to put leashes on the dogs, how to clean their cages, and how to give them medicine if they needed it. It was a lot to learn, but James paid close attention. "Can I take Buddy for a walk first?" James asked when Tina was done explaining everything. "Of course," Tina smiled. "The walking path goes around the yard. Don't let him pull too hard. His joints hurt when he gets too excited." James carefully put the leash on Buddy and walked him outside. The old dog moved slowly, stopping to sniff every few steps. James didn't rush him. He knew what it was like to have achy joints. As they walked, James talked to Buddy just like he talked to Max. He told him about the trees they passed and commented on the nice weather. Buddy seemed to enjoy the conversation, looking up at James with bright eyes. When they returned to the shelter, Tina was watching from the door. "You're a natural," she said. "Buddy usually doesn't warm up to strangers so quickly." "We understand each other," James said, patting Buddy's head. That evening, when James got home, he told Max all about the shelter and the dogs, especially Buddy. Max listened from his bed, his tail thumping softly. For the first time in years, James felt like he had a purpose. He was helping animals who, like him and Max, just wanted someone to care about them. 2 weeks passed. James went to the animal shelter every day. He learned the names of all 15 older dogs in his section. Each one had a story. Some had owners who died. Others were left behind when families moved away. A few were found on the streets, old and alone. James came to love his time at the shelter. The dogs waited for him each morning, their tails wagging when they saw him. Buddy became his special friend. The old brown dog followed James everywhere he was allowed to go. At home, Max was getting weaker. He still ate the food James gave him and took his medicine, but he slept more each day. The vet, Dr. Martinez, came to check on Max at James's house. "How is he doing, doctor?" James asked after Dr. Martinez examined Max. "His heart is very weak now," Dr. Martinez said gently. "He's comfortable, but I don't think he has much longer." James nodded, his throat tight. "But he's not in pain." "No, he's not in pain. You're taking good care of him." Dr. Martinez put a hand on James's shoulder. "Call me anytime, day or night, if you need me." That night, James sat on the floor next to Max's bed. "You've been my best friend, Max," he said softly. "Whatever happens, I'll be right here with you." The next morning, James called Tina at the shelter. "I can't come in today. Max isn't doing well." "Take all the time you need," Tina said. "The dogs will be here when you're ready to come back." James spent the day with Max, sitting beside him, talking to him, and gently stroking his fur. Max barely moved, but his eyes followed James whenever he got up to get water or food. In the evening, there was a knock at the door. James was surprised to see Tina standing there. "I hope it's okay that I came," she said. "I brought some food for you, and I wanted to see Max." James invited her in. Tina knelt beside Max and spoke to him softly. She had brought a special treat, which Max licked from her hand. "I've worked with animals for 15 years, Tina said to James. "They know when they're loved. Max has had a good life with you." "Thank you for saying that," James replied. "And thank you for coming." After Tina left, James went back to sitting with Max. Late that night, Max lifted his head and looked at James with clear eyes. He gave a soft woof, almost like he was saying something important. Then he put his head down on James's leg and closed his eyes. His breathing slowed and then stopped. "Goodbye, old friend," James whispered, tears running down his face. The next few days were hard. James's house felt empty without Max. He called Dr. Martinez, who helped arrange for Max to be cremated. The vet was kind and didn't charge James for this service. "Max was special," Dr. Martinez said. "You gave him a wonderful life." A week after Max died, James returned to the animal shelter. Tina and the dogs were happy to see him. Buddy especially seemed excited, jumping up despite his sore joints. "I've missed you all," James told the dogs as he began his work. Later that day, a family came to the shelter looking for a dog. They had 3 children and wanted a calm, friendly pet. "I have just the dog for you," Tina said, and to James's surprise, she led them to Buddy's cage. James held his breath as the family met Buddy. The children were gentle with him, and Buddy wagged his tail happily. After spending an hour with Buddy in the play area, the family decided they wanted to adopt him. As Tina filled out the paperwork, the father of the family came over to James. "Tina says you've been taking care of Buddy," he said. "Thanks for that. We'll give him a good home." James smiled, though his heart felt both happy and sad. "He likes to be brushed before bedtime," he told the man, "and he loves to hear people talk to him." "We'll remember that," the man promised. James watched as Buddy left with his new family. The old dog looked back once at James, as if to say goodbye. It hurt to see him go, but it also felt right. Buddy deserved a family who would love him. That night at home, James looked at Max's empty bed. "Well, Max," he said aloud, "Buddy found a home today. You'd be happy about that." A month passed. James went to the animal shelter every day. His ankle monitor was still there, but he hardly noticed it anymore. He had finished 100 hours of his community service, but he didn't count the hours. He just enjoyed being with the dogs. One rainy Tuesday, Judge Williams came to visit the shelter. James was cleaning a cage when Tina brought the judge to see him. "Hello, Mr. Miller," Judge Williams said. She wasn't wearing her black judge robe today, just regular clothes. She looked different, more like a normal person. "Hello, Your Honor," James said, standing up straight. He was surprised to see her here. "Please, call me Sarah when we're not in court," she said with a small smile. "I come here sometimes to see how things are going." James nodded. "The dogs are good. 3 more got adopted last week." Judge Williams looked around at the older dogs. Some were sleeping. Others watched her with curious eyes. "Tina tells me you're doing excellent work here." "I like it here," James said simply. "These dogs need someone who understands them." Judge Williams was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I heard about Max. I'm sorry." James looked down. "Thank you." He went peacefully. "May I show you something?" Judge Williams asked. She led James to her car in the parking lot and opened the trunk. Inside was a large bag of expensive dog food and several boxes of new dog toys. "I bring these every month," she explained. "My way of helping." James was surprised. He had thought of Judge Williams as just a strict judge who followed the law. Now he saw she was also a person who cared about animals. "I had a case once," Judge Williams said as they carried the supplies inside. "A man who ran a dog fighting ring. The things those poor animals went through." She shook her head. "After that case, I started coming here to help." James understood now why she had been kind about his request to see Max. She knew what it meant to care about animals. Back inside, they gave out the new toys to the excited dogs. James watched as Judge Williams knelt down, not caring about getting her nice clothes dirty, to pet an old black dog named Shadow. "I like Shadow," James said. "He's shy at first, but he's got a good heart." Judge Williams spent an hour at the shelter, Before she left, she pulled James aside. "Your probation officer gives good reports about you, and Tina says you're one of the best volunteers they've ever had." "Thank you," James said. "I'm just doing what I need to do." "You're doing more than that," Judge Williams replied. "You're making a difference for these animals." After she left, Tina came over to James. "Judge Williams seems to think highly of you." James shrugged. "She's not what I expected." That evening at home, James sat in his quiet living room. He still missed Max terribly. Every now and then, he would look over at the empty dog bed in the corner, expecting to see Max there. The house felt too big and too empty without him. James turned on the TV but wasn't really watching it. His mind was on the shelter dogs, especially a little white dog named Daisy who had arrived yesterday. She was 12 years old and very scared. Her owner had died, and she had nowhere to go. "She needs time," James had told Tina when they tried to get Daisy to eat. "She's lost everything she knew." James understood how Daisy felt. After Anna died, and then Max, James knew what it was like to feel alone in the world. He made a decision that night. Tomorrow, he would ask Tina if he could bring Daisy home for a few days, just to help her adjust. His ankle monitor would allow him to have the dog with him at home. Maybe having Daisy around would help them both feel less alone. For the first time since Max died, James felt hopeful about tomorrow. The next morning, James went to the shelter early. He found Tina in her office, working on some papers. "Tina, I'd like to ask you something," James said. "I was thinking about Daisy, the new white dog. Would it be possible for me to take her home for a few days, just to help her get used to people again?" Tina looked up from her papers and smiled. "I think that's a wonderful idea, James. She hasn't eaten much since she got here. Maybe being in a quiet home will help her." "My probation officer would need to approve it," James added. "I'll call him right now," Tina said, picking up the phone. An hour later, James had permission to take Daisy home as a foster dog. This meant she would stay with him until she was ready to be adopted by a new family. Daisy was very small for a dog, just 15 pounds. She had white curly fur and big brown eyes. When James went to her cage, she backed into the corner, shaking. "It's okay, Daisy," James said softly. "I'm not going to hurt you." He sat on the floor by her cage and just talked to her, not trying to touch her. He told her about his house and the backyard where she could walk around. After a while, Daisy stopped shaking and watched James with curious eyes. Tina brought a dog carrier, and they gently put Daisy inside. "Don't feel bad if she hides when you get home," Tina told James. "She needs time to trust again." At home, James set the carrier down in the living room and opened the door. As Tina had predicted, Daisy didn't come out. James went about his day, making lunch and reading the newspaper. He pretended not to watch as Daisy finally crept out of the carrier and looked around the house. "There's water in that bowl if you're thirsty," James said without looking directly at her. He had put out water and food in the kitchen. By evening, Daisy had explored most of the house. She still wouldn't come near James, but she watched him from a distance. When James sat in his chair to watch TV, Daisy found a spot under the coffee table where she could see him. "Max used to sit right here," James told her, pointing to the spot beside his chair. "He was a good dog. You would have liked him." The next morning, James woke up to find Daisy sitting in the doorway of his bedroom, watching him. When he moved, she ran away, but it was progress. Days passed. Daisy slowly began to trust James. She started eating regularly and even took treats from his hand. After a week, she would sit on the couch near him, though not close enough to touch. "You're doing better," James told her as he got ready to go to the shelter one morning. "Soon you'll be ready to find a new family." The thought made James sad. He had grown fond of the little white dog, but he knew that was the plan. He was just fostering her until she was ready for adoption. At the shelter that day, James told Tina about Daisy's progress. "That's wonderful," Tina said. "You have a gift." James, you understand these dogs. They just need patience, James replied. When he got home that evening, something amazing happened. As soon as James walked in the door, Daisy ran to him, wagging her tail. She jumped up, putting her front paws on his leg. For the first time, Daisy wanted James to pet her. He gently stroked her soft fur, and she didn't pull away. "Well, hello to you too," James said, smiling. His heart felt lighter than it had in weeks. That night, as James watched TV, Daisy jumped up on his lap. She turned around 3 times, then curled up and fell asleep. James carefully petted her, not wanting to disturb her trust. "I guess we both needed a friend," he whispered. 2 months passed. James completed all 200 hours of his community service at the animal shelter, but he still went there every day. Daisy was still with him at home. She had become a different dog, happy, playful, and completely devoted to James. "She's ready for adoption now," Tina told James one day. "I can put her on our website." James nodded, but his heart felt heavy. The thought of giving Daisy to another family made him sad. But that was the plan from the start. He was just fostering her until she was ready for a forever home. "Give me 1 more week with her," James asked. That weekend, something special happened. James had his final meeting with his probation officer, Mr. Clark. They sat at James's kitchen table while Daisy washed from her spot on the couch. "Well, Mr. Millard, you've done everything the court asked of you," Mr. Clark said, looking at his papers. "You paid the fine, completed your community service, and followed all the rules of your house arrest." "Does that mean I'm done?" James asked. "Yes. Today I'll remove your ankle monitor, and your case will be officially closed." Mr. Clark smiled. "Judge Williams will be pleased. She's asked about your progress several times." After the ankle monitor was removed, James rubbed his leg. It felt strange not to have the device there after 3 months. "What will you do now?" Mr. Clark asked. James looked at Daisy. "I don't know yet." On Monday, James went to the animal shelter as usual. But instead of starting work with the dogs, he went to Tina's office. "I need to talk to you about Daisy," he said. Tina smiled. "I was wondering when we'd have this conversation." "What do you mean?" James asked. "I've seen how you look at her, James, and how she looks at you." Tina took out a form from her desk drawer. "This is an adoption application. I've been keeping it ready for you." James felt a lump in his throat. "I didn't plan this. I was just supposed to foster her." "Sometimes the best things aren't planned," Tina said, handing him a pen. That afternoon, James officially adopted Daisy. The shelter waived the usual adoption fee because of all the work James had done. Daisy didn't know anything had changed, but James felt different. Daisy wasn't just staying with him anymore. She was home. A week later, Judge Williams came to visit the shelter again. She found James walking an old golden retriever named Sam. "Hello, James," she said. "Mr. Clark tells me you completed your sentence successfully." "Yes, I did," James replied. "Thank you for giving me that chance." Judge Williams walked alongside them as James continued Sam's walk. "And how is Daisy?" "Tina told me you adopted her." James smiled. "She's doing great. She's at home right now." "Home," Judge Williams repeated with a smile. "That's a good word." They walked in silence for a minute. Then Judge Williams said, "You know, the shelter needs a part-time assistant manager, someone who knows the animals and has experience caring for them." James stopped walking. "Are you offering me a job?" "Tina is offering you a job. I'm just passing along the message." Judge Williams smiled. "It pays better than your pension, and you'd be good at it." That evening, James and Daisy sat on the porch of his small house. Daisy was curled up on his lap, and James was thinking about the job offer. 6 months ago, he had stood in court, asking only to say goodbye to his dog. He never expected that simple request would change his life. He had lost Max, but he had found a new purpose, a new friend in Daisy, and now a new job doing something he loved. "What do you think, Daisy?" James asked, scratching behind her ears. "Should we keep helping dogs like you?" Daisy looked up at him and wagged her tail. James took that as a yes. As the sun set, James felt at peace. He had made mistakes, but he had also found redemption. And he wasn't alone anymore.